One key aspect of all the Animal Crossing games has to be the immense amount of characters that have made the franchise what it is. Disregarding the 400 plus characters known as villagers, there are also what we call special characters that each have been given a specific role in the games. This includes characters like Tom Nook and Isabelle, who are pivotal faces of Animal Crossing and offer various services to the player in the game. Some examples would be shop owners like Timmy and Tommy and the Able Sisters, and holiday characters like Jingle and Zipper. And with about 70 special characters, some seem to stick out more than others due to their rather interesting roles. Examples would be characters like Katrina, who is a fortune teller, and Blanca, who comes on April Fool's Day and disguises herself as other villagers in your town. Too bad Blanca wasn't in New Horizons. I miss her. But out of all the special characters, there seems to be one that is rather peculiar, and that is none other than the fox character named Red. Today, I'm going to be talking about the odd lore of Red and Animal Crossing and how there might be more to this character than we might know. Let's go ahead and get started.
This sneaky, sly, pollution-ridden fox is here to scam us into purchasing bogus items.
What exactly is Tom Nook's relationship with the underhanded fox Crazy Red?
Both creatures are known for having shape-shifting powers in Japanese folklore as well.
There has got to be more of a story to this red guy, I swear.
First of all, let's cover the basics of who Red is and what his function is in Animal Crossing. Red, who is also known as Crazy Red or Jolly Red, is a fox who owns an art shop and has been a part of every Animal Crossing game. He has kind of an orange and yellowish color scheme and wears a blue apron featuring a ginkgo leaf. He's a certain type of special character who does not stay in your town as a shop but appears at certain times during a week. In Animal Crossing GameCube, he sets up at a random acre in your town with a tent that reads Black Market with the word black scribbled out. In Wild World, once a week he sets up his tent outside of Town Hall and a random villager in your town will give you a password that you need to enter the shop. In City Folk, this is the only game where he seems to have a permanent place, and it's in the city area in the very back of it. In New Leaf, he will set up his tent in your plaza where he will set up 4 pieces of art you can buy. In New Horizons, he runs a ship called the Treasure Trawler and docks at the small beach at the back of your island. However, in the 2.0 update, Nintendo added an addition to Harv's Island, including a tiny permanent shop for Red where he only sells 2 pieces of art a day. In New Leaf and New Horizons, he also runs a booth during the fireworks show where he just sells themed items. The biggest aspect about Red that everyone knows is that he is in fact a con artist. The artwork he sells includes paintings and statues and can sometimes be counterfeit pieces. Up until New Leaf, the player couldn't look at the piece of art before purchasing it and can only find out if the work was fake by donating it to the museum and Blather saying if it was. Thankfully though, in New Leaf and New Horizons, the player can actually take a closer look at the art and determine if it's real or not by spotting the tiny detail that might be different than the actual artwork. Purchasing art from Red is the main way a player can obtain pieces to donate to the art portion of the museum. The only other way is to randomly get sent an art piece by a villager on your island in the mail as a gift, but you don't know if it's fake or not. Obviously, Red is characterized as sneaky and mischievous since he sells forgery art pieces, and of course, what other animal could Red be based on other than a fox, since they have similar traits? But in the context of Animal Crossing and its continuous ways of implementing Japanese myths and ideologies, Red might actually be based on a kitsune rather than just an ordinary fox. So what exactly is a kitsune and how does that add a deeper meaning to who and what Red really is? In Japanese mythology, kitsune are based on actual foxes and have supernatural and paranormal abilities. They are known for their trickery and can even transform into humans or other beings to fool people into giving them what they want. Kitsune are believed to have various magical powers, superior intelligence, and live a long life. These mythical creatures likely originated from the rapid increase of foxes in ancient Japan and how they would protect people's crops by eating pests like mice and rats. However, due to these humans observing foxes' behavior over time, they quickly characterized them as intelligent and mystical creatures. They are nocturnal animals, making them hard to spot, and led people to assume they had powers of disappearing. And by the high-end period from 794 to 1185, foxes were commonly believed to have been granted powers to shapeshift. In several stories, they would transform into beautiful women or children in order to appear innocent to easily trick people. A key aspect of kitsune is that they could have as many as 9 tails, stating that a large number of tails indicates a stronger and more powerful being. Other supernatural abilities Kitsune could possess included generating fire or lightning, invisibility, and even creating illusions so intricate that it was hard to separate it from reality. Some tales talk about Kitsune having even greater powers, like being able to bend space and time. With the rising interest in these mythical creatures, they are seen in various forms of media, specifically in games like Red and Animal Crossing or the Pokemon Ninetales. There are other works in history that could depict what Red's character is based on, like Reynard the Fox from European medieval stories, where the fox character is known to trick other animals. Or even the poem Divine Comedy by Dante, where it talks about a demon named Rubicante who rests in the Malebolge, which is a place dedicated to fraudsters. All of these pieces of literature all deal with the idea of a fox-like animal who deceives and manipulates, but a kitsune seems to be the most fitting for what Red is based on. Okay, you're probably wondering if Red is actually a kitsune rather than just a fox. So let's take a look at another reason why this could be the case by looking at another special character in Animal Crossing and how he connects to Red. This character is none other than the well-known and biggest face of the games, Tom Nook. Did you know that Tom Nook and Red are actually rivals? But it wasn't always this way. Tom Nook and Red supposedly used to be business partners, and they no longer are due to a certain incident that is unspoken of. This is revealed through Tom Nook saying this in Happy Home Designer. Have you ever worked with a fox? Yes, foxes are never to be trusted. I worked with a fox once in my life. Never again. Not after the incident. Stop. I cannot say a word more. Let us assume it was tragic and not speak of it again. Red, in turn, says snarky things about Tom in this game as well. Clearly, something happened between Tom Nook and Red that led them to no longer work together and resent each other, but it is unknown as to what that was. It probably had something to do with Red's trickery business practices. Yes, I know I said I would elaborate on how Red is a kitsune, and obviously Tom referred to him as a fox, but let me just cook here for a minute, okay? I talked about this in my bizarre Animal Crossing items video, but there is a furniture item that represents another mythological creature in Japanese folklore called a tanuki. And it's obvious by the similarities in appearances, Tom Nook is a tanuki. The craziest thing about that is tanuki and kitsune often work together as they both possess magical and shape-shifting powers. However, there are also tales that speak about the rivalry between these two creatures and how they would use their abilities against each other. This is due to the fact tanuki are often seen as a more good-hearted creature, and kitsune are more sly and mischievous. This obviously causes them to pin against each other, just like Tom Nook and Red. Despite Tanuki being seen as the better-spirited being, that doesn't take away from the fact that Tom still has some villainous behavior, like controlling the island or town's economy and using manipulation tactics in order to get the player's bells. I could go more in depth about Tom's character, but that would have to be a whole separate video, and we're here to talk about Red. So with this rivalry between these two characters in Animal Crossing similar to the folktales, it's clear that these animals could easily be the mythical creatures we mentioned before instead. Circling back a little bit, we all know Red steals counterfeit art that are actual art pieces in real life, including significant works in history like the Mona Lisa and Starry Night. But it kind of begs the question, how does Red obtain these pieces of art? With this idea that Red is a kitsune with mystical powers, it has led some players to theorize that Red might actually be an interdimensional time traveler. Let's take a dive into why this might be the case for Red. First of all, remember what I mentioned before about a kitsune's abilities, specifically how they can shapeshift, but also can even bend space and time. This idea can be seen through the little details in paintings and statues that he sells that make them fake. For example, let's take a look at the Jolly painting. The fake one is missing the little plant sticking out of the straw, which is only a minor difference between the real one. Another example is the Quaint painting, where the only difference is the water flow from the pot the woman is holding, which is an even significantly lower difference between the two. Of course, there are other pieces of art that are actually noticeably different for us, like the Mona Lisa, where the fake one has her with her eyebrows furrowed. But these minor details that are seen in these art pieces that make them fake are not just things Red had drawn on them. It's almost like it's an error of some sort, kind of like a rip in the space-time continuum. So in a sense, the fake pieces might not be a work of forgery, but more like an alternate version of the art that was created from Red hopping timelines and dimensions. But the thing is, Red doesn't necessarily know whether or not the art he is selling is genuine, because it's up to us to determine if it's real by looking at it first. This theory was brought up by a user on Reddit, so all credit to them, but they said, Red is an interdimensional time traveler that started off by replacing the real deal pieces with with fakes in museums, taking the real ones and selling them to high rollers in various dimensions. However, due to the multiplication of temporal variations caused randomly and with purpose, combined with the lack of time, ironic for a time traveler, for all the thefts and requisite reselling of stolen goods in order to keep the temporal art police off his tail, he's lost track of what's real and what isn't. Let's break this down into more simple terms and how Red actually executes this. It all started when Red began traveling to different time periods, swapping significant art pieces with forgeries that had tiny, almost unnoticeable differences. Using his shapeshifting and mysterious powers, he pulled off these heists and sold the stolen art to wealthy buyers in other dimensions for a hefty price. But with all the constant swapping and reselling across dimensions, anomalies started to appear, like duplicate pieces or slight variations in the same artwork. Over time, Red himself lost track of which pieces were real and which were fake. These tiny differences are a clue that even Red isn't sure anymore, leaving it up to the player to decide what's authentic. Of course, Red is still a con artist, and the pieces were forged at some point, but were eventually kind of all blended together, creating a plethora of alternate versions of the same piece. The same Reddit user goes on to say he also has no idea what he's already sold you, which is why you can end up having several real Mona Lisas hanging in your house. Real ones that Blathers refuses to even admit exist. So due to the Red's constant dimension traveling, he kind of loses track of what he's already sold to others, leaving you as the player being able to obtain multiple versions of the same artwork. Because as we know in real life, there's only one Mona Lisa, and there's only one Starry Night. Furthermore, Blathers doesn't seem to acknowledge these other versions of the same piece, and is convinced that there is only one authentic version of the art, resulting in him believing that any duplicates are considered fake, even if it's the actual version. So all in all, this whole theory that Red is an interdimensional traveler that uses his kitsune abilities to obtain this art is rather intriguing, but definitely a bit far-sighted. It's interesting to think that the non-real versions of these paintings and statues are actually not a form of forgery, but more like an alternate variation that is considered the real one in a different timeline or dimension. For example, let's go back to the Mona Lisa one with the furrowed eyebrows instead of the content expression version that is considered the real one. The quote-unquote fake one, according to this theory, could be the real version of this painting in an alternate dimension. This idea that Red is a time traveler of some sort is a very odd but interesting way to break down his character and who he really is. Of course, this theory does sound a bit far-fetched, and Red is obviously just a con artist fox that participates in the black market and tries to sell you non-genuine art to make a quick buck. Although this theory would kind of explain how Red obtained these art pieces in the first place, because there are speculations that he could have just been the one to make all these artworks, but who knows? So is Red just your average con artist, or could he have strange powers that grant him the ability to travel across various dimensions to get these art pieces, resulting in oddities and time rips? I think the first option is what everyone is going to lean more towards, but it is interesting to think about. Who Red really is will continue to be sort of a mystery and up to the player to decide his origins. Thank you guys for watching, and I've said this in my videos before, but I can really appreciate Nintendo for paying homage to these old Japanese tales and figuring out ways to put them into Animal Crossing. Also, I'm not saying that the Japanese mythology about Red being a kitsune is odd, but more so the theory is odd and interesting. And Nintendo is a Japanese company, so of course they would add this kind of stuff into their games. What are your thoughts on Red? Is he just a con artist, or could he be a time traveling one? Let me know what you think. Also, what are some other characters in Animal Crossing you would like to see lore videos about? I'm honestly open to whatever, so just let me know in the comments. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.